Troubling headlines and reports.
CCP government has a strategy when confronting the United States.
The U.S. loses $200 to $600 billion each year to China. That's through intellectual property theft. But how is it happening? With a little help from friends on the inside. Made in China labels flood the market, from everyday items to toys to industrial tools. And now, even some policies here in America are being shaped by the communist regime. In this special report, we peel back the layers on how the complicit actions of American elites have helped China gain an edge. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. The biggest threat facing America isn't from abroad. Rather, it comes from within. As Professor Walter Russell Mead wrote in the Wall Street Journal, America's greatest risk isn't the vulnerability of its voting machines to foreign hackers or the susceptibility of party apparatchiks to phishing scams. It is the erosion of ethical standards in the American political and business establishments that most exposes the U.S. to the kind of foreign interference against which George Washington warned. One example, the current president of the United States. In 2011, then Vice President Joe Biden said a rising China is a positive development, not only for China, but for America and the world writ large. But is it? And what does a rising China mean for the world?
The CCP government has a strategy when confronting the United States, and that strategy is to buy off elites in the United States by giving them lucrative deals, special access to the Chinese market, etc. It involves political figures, but it also involves corporate and executives and businessmen. And it's a very effective strategy, and it's hamstringing our ability to deal with the threat posed by the Beijing regime.
That's Peter Schweitzer, author of Red-Handed: How American Elites Get Rich Helping China Win. He's also the president of the Government Accountability Institute. For years, he's been investigating how politicians on both sides of the aisle are cashing out to the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP.
I think from Beijing's perspective, they don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. They are happy to strike this kind of bargain. And what they're looking for is individuals that will help them on the big issues that matter most to them, which is access to Western technology, access to Western capital markets.
But what happens when those deals put American lives at risk? The leaders who are supposed to be passing laws to protect American citizens are the ones who benefit the most by not passing those laws.
We're not talking about small sums of money. We're talking about deep financial ties, whether it's the tens of millions of dollars that the Biden family has received from CCP-linked businessmen, or whether it's the billion-dollar deals or more that some of the firms on Wall Street or Silicon Valley have received. So that's what's so disconcerting to me. It's a systematic, widespread problem involving a lot of people and a lot of money, which I believe gives Beijing a lot of leverage over these individuals.
But it's not just politicians.
Scary to me because of the breadth and the depth of what we're talking about. By breadth, I mean the biggest names in Silicon Valley, the biggest names on Wall Street, the most powerful people in Washington, D.C., including the president and his first family, I think are all involved in this. So it's very broad. We're not talking about one or two people. We're talking about many people who are very powerful.
Let's look at some of these big names. In the business area, Elon Musk has come under scrutiny. The Wall Street Journal ran a report quoting lawmakers who are concerned about the extent of Musk's China dealings. They say they fear Beijing could access classified information.
The concern is that he runs, of course, Tesla. He also runs SpaceX. They share certain executives in common. They also share certain proprietary technologies. There is software that Tesla uses on its systems in its cars that are also being used on the SpaceX rockets that are being launched into space for U.S. military or intelligence purposes. And there's a very real concern that now that, of course, Beijing has control over Tesla operations in China, which means they have access to technologies that they also now have SpaceX secrets as well.
Schweitzer covered Elon Musk's China ties in his book, where he notes Musk was also well aware that his companies, especially SpaceX, was being probed by Chinese intelligence. Musk himself acknowledges that Chinese entities stole software code from his company Tesla. That is not just a competitive problem, it is a national security one. That same software is used by Musk's SpaceX, which launches payloads and works closely with the U.S. military. So what's being done about it? We reached out to Tesla and SpaceX, but did not receive a response by airtime. So why would people be willing to compromise national security? Ross Kennedy, founder of Fortis Analysis, explains.
There's four real factors that when you talk about why someone may make a decision that they would be a willing or in some way a participant, a knowing participant in something that could be dangerous to national security. You talk about four factors, and they're called the MICE factors, M-I-C-E. Money, ideology, coercion, or ego.
While the name might bring to mind cartoon characters nibbling away on cheese, there's darker implications behind it.
You know, if you think about why would someone spy on their country, their own country that they were born into, for example, some people may do it just for a thrill. That's not that common.
And if it's money on the table,
in some way incentivized financially to do it, it doesn't mean someone handed them a, in the case of, maybe doing business in China, a red envelope of product. It doesn't mean that they're getting paid cash under the table in some illegal scheme. It could be that family members or friends or associates or business partners in other ventures would have the ability to bid on this project and participate in the construction of it and make a lot of money from it. And that is a conflict of interest, but conflict of interest laws are a little bit hazy, and so it's very difficult to actually prove conflict of interest.
Well, corruption in politics and business might not be all that surprising. What about in the education sphere, where the leaders of tomorrow are made? Kevin Roberts is president of the nonpartisan think tank, the Heritage Foundation. He notes how Beijing's influence reaches into America's education system, from K through 12 to universities. He points to two ways China accomplishes this.
And not just because of the Confucius Institutes, but because of some really savvy funding by the CCP in research grants, including, very surprisingly, in some military and military-involved technology. Students are being taught by professors who believe that at worst, the Chinese Communist Party is fine, and some of them even celebrate it. And so it's very important that Congress take action to disconnect that money.
He goes on to note what that money actually does in terms of shaping students' minds.
Students in college, I want to be really clear, have this misunderstanding about the threat posed by the CCP, by the evil that they propagate every day, not because they're dumb, not because they're uneducated, but because of the connections that the CCP has very methodically made into research universities in particular.
So that's in the higher education realm. But what about in K through 12, where Beijing is also buying up influence? That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program on YouTube. That's after being demonetized for a year. Full episodes can be watched on our partner platform, Epoch TV. To sign up for a 14-day free trial, please click the link down below. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer, and see you tomorrow.
Every once in a while, something comes along so masterful, it leaves you in awe. So inspiring, it changes your life. So beautiful, you wish it would never end. When that happens, it's something not to be missed. Shen Yun, an all-new production every year.
The performance was enchanting.
I feel better about the world. I feel uplifted.
It touches you. It really does.
The expertise of the dancers was really, really strong.
To know that it was live music was really fantastic.
We didn't want to miss this.
Make sure you see it.
Have to come. Life-changing.